Hey there everybody, it's markcrilley. I'm back with another how to draw video, although today we're really going to be going way beyond just drawing to actually making something. Some of you may recall a couple of videos I've done that involve freestanding characters, quite flat still, but they're capable of popping up off the page. And I thought I would try to take that one step further today with an actual three-dimensional character. Now this is my plan. It's going to be a kind of a Chibi robot, and you can see it will be composed of the head, the body, two arms, and the two legs will really just be a single box, but I'll try to draw them in such a way, illustrate the surface so that it looks like two separate legs. Now normally I like for you to see my process from the beginning, from the blank page, but this time I've had to sort of prepare things in advance, and what I've got here is my plan for just the head. And what I'm going to do is, by way of my DeviantArt page, I'll put a link in the info box that shows you all of these different plans, the sizes, in case anyone wants to try to follow along with this. I know it would be hard for you to just hit the pause button and get all that info from this video. So I will have a link to a specific DeviantArt page that gives you all of this type of information, if indeed you want to try to follow along. And so what I've done is prepared in advance the head, the lines that will allow me to create the head of this robot. And what we're going to do right now is begin by illustrating the eyes and the various sort of surface details. And step by step, we're going to try to construct this robot. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so I've zoomed in a little bit here, and just to get the facts straight on what we're doing, this is going to be the actual face. And these are the two sides of the head. This becomes the back of the head, and this is the top of the head. This is actually the underside of the head, and we barely even need to illustrate this at all. So I'm going to begin by drawing the eyes of the robot, and I'm just going to make them simple circles, kind of low on the head. One of the ways of making a character look cute and baby-like is to put the facial features low on the head. And so I thought, even though this is a robot, why not try to give that sort of babyish look by making the eyes a little bit low on this very boxy looking head. And I'm going to be curious as to see what happens with this video, because all of my videos can be followed along with. I wonder how many people will, the few, the brave, will attempt to follow along with this fairly complicated lesson. But as soon as I got the idea in my head of trying to do my first ever three-dimensional paper sculpture video, I just thought, oh, I got to do it. I got to try doing this. It's going to be so much fun. So we'll see if anyone wants to follow along with this, and if you do, I'd be curious to see if people come up with their own different designs, because certainly there's so many different types of little robot designs that you could do with this basic pattern. Part of the reason that I decided to do a robot is because by nature you can get away with these boxy shapes, right? So I thought, for constructing a three-dimensional character, keeping it boxy is going to keep it simple. I think I'll go ahead and give him just a little slightly happy robo smile here. And in a minute I'm going to be adding color to this. Now this first one, the head, is I'm going to try to show a lot of the process real time. I think as we move along I may have to time-lapse through certain parts of it to keep the video to a reasonable length. But one thing I want to show you is the idea of putting little bolts, like little rivets, I guess they would be. I'm going to put like 4 on each side of this square, and to me that will convey this sort of robot-like look. Unfortunately, I get a rivet right there on that line. I don't know. It would be nice if it wasn't on that line, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So I'm going to go ahead and finish off that little bit, get these little rivets there. I'm going to darken in the other stuff so it'll sort of stand out more, but that gives me some sense of where all that's going to be. I thought it would be interesting if, we continue this line across all the way around the head, and so I'm going to go ahead and extend that all the way across. In fact, this might be a good time to pull out the old ruler. How about if I do that? just to make sure that it's all exactly even. You do want to try to keep uniformity here, and even though you might like to just eyeball it and say, close enough, I think it might be better if we get the actual straight line in here. So there we go. We got that where it needs to be. Now, I had an idea that in the back of the sides of the head, there will be a sort of a vent that you could think was like a cooling vent or something, but it would also look a little bit like ears. You know, it'll be in the location where the ears would be on a human head. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. So a few horizontal lines here I think will suggest the idea of a vent. And I'll go ahead and do the same thing over here. Because it's identical, I'll just go ahead and do that in time-lapse. Okay, so you can see that while I was at it, I decided to extend the rivets all along the various visible sides of the head. And just one more thing that I wanted to add for visual interest is kind of an opening or a compartment, the suggestion of a compartment on top of his head. Maybe it's something that can be opened up, a little door here that can be opened up for repairs or some such thing. But just so that that's not a completely blank surface. And indeed, you know, if you were doing your own design here and you wanted it to be crawling with detail, you could do all kinds of, you know, decorative stuff here if you wanted to. Now, what I'm going to do is pull out a Pantone marker. People always like to know, what is it? What marker is that? And you'll notice that I'm adding color before I add the lines. I'm thinking that's going to save me from getting too much streaking with, you know, sometimes markers can actually cause ink to streak a bit. And so I'm deciding to do this at the penciling stage. I'm going to go ahead and allow myself to spin this paper a little bit. Why not? I need the freedom. I've been chained down long enough. These pieces of paper. And eventually I'm going to also add a little colored pencil, maybe even watercolor. You know, for sure I'll be adding gouache. Everyone knows how much I love gouache. But I thought I'd at least show a little bit of this real time. Why don't I'll go ahead and extend to the face here. We'll do two sections real time. The side of the head and the front of the face. And then the rest of it we may have to zoom through in time-lapse. But I know some people like there to be as much real time as possible in these videos, and so that's what we'll do here. I'm not worrying too much about streaks. You know, you can see that the markers leave a little bit of streaking. My idea is to have this not be a brand new squeaky clean robot anymore. Anyway, I should learn how to speak before I film one of these videos. But yes, I don't want him to be so clean and perfect looking. Maybe a little bit like Wall-E. From the Pixar movie, a robot that's a little bit beat up, has a little wear and tear. So, my idea is to have a kind of duotone, a two-color robot, a robot that basically consists of two colors. And so I'm going to switch from this marker to a Tria, or no, what is this Tria? A Spectrum Noir, a completely different brand. As people know, I mix and match. I will not swear fealty to any one marker company. So I'm coming in here and giving a lighter tone of blue, sort of aquamarine-ish, bluish color to the lower section. And this little color scheme is going to repeat basically throughout the entire robot. I'm going to limit this little guy to basically two colors, maybe a third color, some sort of shade of gray. The eyes, I think I'm going to make black, actually. So there will be a few different colors. But I'm not going to make him a rainbow-colored, you know, brightly colored robot with all kinds of colors. I do like to, I've said this in other videos, I do like to keep my color schemes somewhat simple. So we've got that in place. Let's see if, again, with a bit of real time, I'm going to try adding a bit of color by way of colored pencils. Hang on just a second. Okay, so I've grabbed a Prismacolor very thin, a slightly harder lead type of colored pencil, and I'm going to add a bit of shading around the edges. My idea is that this would benefit from having added darkness all along the edges, the sort of joints where the the pieces of steel join one another. I'm not sure if that's based on any kind of reality. Is anything that I say in these videos based on any kind of reality? I'm thinking no. But I'm just going to add in just a little extra shading here. So there's a little tip for you, regardless of whatever design you choose to follow in doing a project like this. One nice technique you can use for coloring is to begin with marker and then add a colored pencil on top of it. Now, people may be sort of surprised that I think for all three of these projects that involve sort of pop-out 3D characters, I have used marker rather than watercolor. There is a method to that madness, though, and that is because watercolor, even if you're using very thick paper, can cause it to wrinkle a little. And if you're using very thin paper, it will cause it to warp a lot. So that's why I'm using marker for projects like this. I just don't want the paper to get warped or wrinkled. Speaking of which, and I probably should have made this clear back at the beginning, if you're going to try to follow along with this project, use the thickest paper you can find. I'm using Bristol board here. It comes in pads of about 20 sheets per pad, and that'll stand up. You know, I mean, you're trying to create a three-dimensional object here, so you need it to be composed of strong paper that you know, almost architecturally will give this figure some support. Otherwise, it's going to be, it seems to me, you know, very floppy and easily crushed. Basically, if you're using office paper or something like that. So definitely try to find like poster board. As I'm using Bristol board, then just the strongest, thickest kind of cardstock like paper that you can find. Now for this other lower area, I'm switching to a different Prismacolor. This one happens to be the softer lead, so that I don't have to push down. I don't have to press down as hard. In fact, I'm being careful not to press down too hard so as to make it match the shading on the upper edge. And I can see already that you know, the amount of time that it's taking me just to shade in one side of this is probably going to prevent me from doing all of this real time. But you know, hopefully you'll all agree that you get the idea of what I'm doing here. You get a sense of the amount of time that I'm taking to build it up. I'm not rushing it. I'm not laboring over it either. As I lapse into the terrible English accent. Just for me, this is a comfortable speed and pace at which to take this project. But I thought what I would do one more little bit in real time is to color in this vent near the ear. If indeed that is an ear, does the robot have an actual ear inside behind that vent? Could be. Who knows? This is fantasy land. We can make it any way we want. But I wanted to show you that I'm actually going to use a third color there. I'm going to grab yet another marker, a Prismacolor. 3 different colors, 3 different marker companies. This ragtag assortment of markers. But this is going to be, I've decided, a darker gray. Although not super dark. I'm going to use this for both the ears and for the eyes. Although I'm going to try to shade the eyes in so much that they almost appear black at the end. But anyway, I'm going to give it a base color here. And I'm just going to go ahead and color this all the way in, because I am going to pull out gouache to give it highlights at the end. But rather than try to leave the white of the page there, I'm just going to go ahead and go for it. And I think my plan of just going onto the pencil with this marker is paying off, because the pencil did not streak too much with the addition of marker, which can sometimes happen. I'm going to actually go to the other side where you get a slightly finer point and use that for coloring in the mouth here. And I thought what I could do is show you very quickly with a black Prismacolor how I intend to darken in the eyes. And this may be the last thing that I can do real time on this piece, but I think you kind of get the basic idea of how this worked and the different techniques that I used, or drawing materials that I used, the order in which I applied them. But I am, in this case, going to leave a little gap here near the top, which is going to be where the highlight goes. And by leaving a highlight, and also, later on touching it up with white gouache, we're going to make his eyes seem kind of shiny. Cute little button eyes. Robo button eyes. And to no one's surprise, I will reveal to you that I do intend to give him little robot blushies. Electro blushies! You know why? Because if I don't, my viewers will have my hide. There will be hundreds, if not thousands, of comments. Mark, you forgot the blushies. So anyway, I think you get the basic idea of my coloring approach. I'm going to go ahead and carry on. I'm going to go back to marker so as to color in these remaining pieces. And it's all going to be in time-lapse. And then we're going to cut it out and try to piece this together to make the head of the robot. Alright, so I just wanted to quickly point out that I did decide to add a little bit of color down here because the head is larger than the body, and this will be visible partially. So I'm going to add some white gouache in a second, but before I do that, I want to show you the importance of scoring the paper, that is, making it easier to fold. And I'm taking an X-Acto knife here, and I'm kind of flipping it over so that I'm not using the sharp end of it. I'm going to actually use the dull end of the knife, and I'm actually getting out of my chair here for a second to make sure I can see what I'm doing here. But this line right here, I'm going to go 1 and 2, just 2 times. And then later on, after I cut this out, it's going to help me when I try to bend, fold the edges of all of this. So I just wanted to show you my process there, and I think showing it to you one time in real time is all you need, really. But I'm going to go ahead and in time-lapse do the scoring. Just remember that not only are you folding here, but you're also folding these tabs, that go inside and tuck inside the box. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Alright, well, we're almost ready to cut this out of the paper and fold it together, but first I want to pull out my white gouache, and I am going to do some highlights. Really, the key thing is to make these eyes a little shinier. And I guess I just say right now that my approach is to do all of the coloring now while it's still flat. Of course, you could still add color after you've folded it together, but I feel like I prefer having this flat surface underneath that supports the paper firmly. I think once you fold it together, it's going to bend a little, it's going to give, and you're not going to you won't be as comfortable, I don't think, without something to place your hand on and so forth. I think I'm going to try just on the fly here. I'm going to put a little counter highlight on the opposite side of each eye, and see if that adds something to it. I may need to diminish that later on. But one other thing, just to go a little crazy with the detail, is I'm going to go ahead and pop just a little white dot on each one of these rivets. And that's going to make those stand out and seem a little more three-dimensional. But let's go ahead and do the rest of that in time-lapse. All right, well, we finally finished all of the coloring. I've pre-scored all of these areas where I'm going to fold it, and so now I want to go ahead and cut it out. I've decided to just do the cutting all by hand. I know it will be less perfect, I suppose, than I did if I did it with the X-Acto blade. But I don't know, sometimes cutting with the X-Acto blade becomes very tedious for me. And I'll just say one thing: if you're going to do something with scissors, sometimes I find it helpful to just do a real rough cut all the way around the edge that is not the actual cutting, but it just sort of gets rid of this excess paper. That's what I'm going to do right now. Then I can sort of chuck that out of the way. Chuck it. Get that thing out of my sight. I just feel like it frees me up to have a little more control over the, whoops, sorry about that. Hitting the leg of the tripod. Just gives me a little more control during this final cutting process. But I think it's safe to say that no one needs to see me cutting paper real time. So let's go ahead and finish the cutting in time-lapse, and then I will do the big moment of truth, see if we can fold this together and turn it into the head of the robot. All right, well, here we go, folks. I'm going to begin folding the sides. You can see that having scored it with the, again, important to say, the dull side of the knife. You don't want to cut into it too much with the sharp side. This allows me to begin making these folds. Now, these little tabs here are actually pretty important for hiding gaps between the two pieces of paper. And I may actually, before I finalize this, sticking it all together, and I'm going to use tape, I think, like double-sided tape, to make this permanent. I may even color in a bit. Oh my goodness, I bet I forgot. Yeah, look at that, folks. I forgot to score that, and I'm going to wait, actually, because I don't want to try to fold that without having pre-scored it. Just shows you, what a novice, what a noob. He didn't finish scoring all of the different parts. But anyway, yeah, if you find a part where you did forget, then I would advise you just to wait and then score it before you attempt to make the final. In fact, let's just go ahead and do that. Hang on a second. All right, having done that, you get a much easier fold there, and we can finish this process of attempting to kind of just pop it together and show you how it's going to work. Okay, so this, let's begin by saying that this would get attached back here using a piece of tape. Then this folds in like so. I'm just going to hold it with my fingers for now, but this will hopefully show you how this, if I've measured correctly, should come back like so, and ta-da! We get our three-dimensional Chibi Robo head. So that's the beginning of the process, and I've tried to do quite a bit of this, real time, and I will continue for the things that involve drawing of like surface details to do that real time. But I think with the coloring from here on out is just going to have to be all time lapse. But let's go ahead, and I'm going to pull out my double-sided tape, and that's going to allow me to make this permanent. Give me just a second. All right, well, there you have it. We got the head finished, and I'll just sort of quickly give you the full view of it. Some of the measurements might have been a tiny bit off, and I'll try to correct that a bit with the marker, try to camouflage it. But not bad, I would say, for my first 3D papercraft type project. Let's move on to the next one, which is happily going to be a lot easier. It's the easiest of all of the 5 different pieces. It will be the torso. All right, so when I say easy, I do mean easy, because this central body part of the robot is a perfect square. It is really the same measurement on all 4 sides, or boy, it's going to be more than 4, isn't it? I don't know, somebody answer that question for me. People who understand geometry better than I do. All of these sides end up being exactly 1 1/4 inch or 3.2 centimeters. And as I did before, I've already prepared my pattern. But I want to show you some of the decorative stuff that I'm going to put in place by way of pencil. All right, so I've zoomed in just a little here, and this is going to be the front of the robot. That's the one where I'm going to be having most of the details. So I'm going to go ahead and draw in a line right here that's going to be for the sort of waist area, and down here I'm probably just going to use that darker shade of blue that you saw on the top of the head. And you know, as I was saying before, feel free to come up with any way you want to do this, if indeed you even attempt to follow along with this ridiculously complex tutorial. But what I've decided to do is add basically 3 different robo-decorative items. This area over here is actually a little bit inspired by Buzz Lightyear, because he's got those 3 buttons, those sort of 3 vertical buttons on his chest, and I thought it would be kind of nice as a tribute to him, to Buzz, to put 3 little vertical buttons here. Who knows what they do? Let me know in the comment section. Well, one of them makes toast pop out of the top of his head. Over here I want to do an old-fashioned gauge, do you call this? Where it sort of shows, I don't know, pressure on the inside of his body building up, or whatever the amount of electricity that's powering his electro blushies. Electro blushies activate. Anyway, so I'm putting a little needle here, and then maybe later on with the coloring I'll add different zones or whatever. And then down here I thought I would just add a couple of knobs. And if you got really into this, I suppose you could start to make some of this stuff 3-dimensional. I think I'm just going to, you know, make it drawn. But maybe try to make it pop out a little by way of shading. So that shows you what that is. Now the key thing to remember is if you decide to have a belt-like area here, then you need to kind of measure pretty carefully how far you went with that. And then it's over here, because this is all folding together, it's over here that you need to repeat that, and you have to make it the same width each time. It ended up being about 5 centimeters, even though I was just sort of eyeballing it. And indeed, I'm going to go ahead and get this all the way around here on all sides, including the back. All of this is going to fold up together and become this central torso body section of the robot. So that basically shows you what I plan to do. You know, I may just in time-lapse add some decorative stuff for his back. The arms are going to come in here. I don't know if I'm going to bother putting too much there, but I am going to continue with my idea of rivets. So rather than bore you all to death by doing all of that real time, suffice to say, I've established this idea of 4 rivets filling in the space on some of these areas anyway, and that becomes yet another sort of decorative way of finishing this off. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom through the rest of this, not just the penciling, but the coloring and everything, and probably through to the scoring, and then just zip along to that final part where I get to fold it and put it together. So hang on, folks. We're going to go ahead and take this one to the end of the process. All right, well, again, we have reached the moment of truth, and notice that I colored in the bottom section because bits of it will be visible after we attached the legs. So I decided to go ahead and kind of color that whole thing. This time I believe I have remembered to score all the different areas. It certainly does make it way, way easier, and you just end up with a prettier looking fold. Boy, that one probably could have been scored a little better. Anyway, this gives you the basic look of it, and let's see what happens when we fold it all together for the first time. This is going to be the front. I've decided that's going to be the back. And this will pop right in there. The top, I felt, didn't really need to be colored because it will be pretty much entirely concealed. Although I may need to go back and color that one even as well, depending on how I decide to position the head. But there you go, folks. It's looking good. Let's flip it around to the back. I'll go ahead and use the tape to finish this, and then we're going to move on to the arms. All right, well, there it is, the front and the back. And I decided to leave this top loose for now because I might need to press my fingers in here when I'm getting, I'm attaching the arms and legs. So we're going to leave that as is for now. But let's go ahead and get on to making the arms.